everyone, and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Marketing. Super excited to have Michelle Louw with us this week. We're going to be talking about social selling, which is a subject we've touched on before, but we're really going to focus on solopreneurs, business owners, and what you should be doing and how you can make the most of it, not just in terms of social selling on LinkedIn, but we're going to talk about newsletters and Sales Navigator and all sorts of stuff. So hello, Michelle. How are you doing?
Hey, Simon. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. And whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm actually in Johannesburg. I'm in South Africa.
Johannesburg, yeah. Lovely. Yeah. We have we speak to people all over the world on this podcast, so it's exciting. It's nice and
incredible.
Nice and global.
Yeah, the world is a village.
Yeah, exactly. Is it nearly the end of your day? Am I right?
And say that again.
Is it nearly the end of your day? Right.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Lovely. Okay. Oh, I've never been to South Africa. I've only been to North Africa, but one day.
On your bucket list.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, brilliant. Great to have you here. As I say, social selling is it's a real hot topic. There's a lot going on in this space at the moment. I thought it was worth having a good chat around it and just really getting to the basics of those people who are, as solopreneurs, as we said, and business owners. If you're running a small business, what is it you really need to be thinking about in terms of social selling? So, I think I'm going to do this a bit backwards. I think. So rather than giving our listeners tips on what they should do, let's start with the opposite and give them tips on what they shouldn't do. Because I think it's really easy to go out there and get started and make some mistakes. And that's where we all learn the most, isn't it, from making mistakes? So in your mind, when it comes to social selling, what are the mistakes people make that we should be trying to avoid?
Oh, there are a couple, Simon. So off the top of my head, it's firstly, it's using genre or lingo that only linked to your industry.
Right.
So terms only specific to your industry that no one else really understands, right? You don't want to be assuming that everybody just understands your terminology, because 9 out of 10 times they don't. Right. So you want to use the verbiage, the words that they use. You don't also want to constantly be in selling mode, like every single thing that you do has a call to action. You know what I mean? Constantly
absolutely.
in your soapbox, you know. So there's that. You want to start how you mean to finish, and that's when it comes to social selling. You want to be as consistent as you possibly can. So if you're going to put out a content strategy that you're going to post content on social media platforms 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you want to make sure that you can do that every single week consistently. And not I love the saying, it's an apple a day, not 7 on a Sunday, right?
Yeah, I'm probably a bit guilty of that last one, actually. Not necessarily with content, but certainly with fruit.
So consistency is a big one. Consistency is a really big one, yeah.
Well, let's dig into some of those a little bit. So, jargon. I mean, I think it's an interesting one, jargon, right? Because I think that some people get in the habit of thinking, if I sound really technical, I use a lot of jargon, then I sound like I really know what I'm talking about. But you're absolutely right that I've seen this time and time again. The businesses that use intense jargon, they may sometimes come across as authorities, and if they're in a complex industry, actually, it's probably the right thing to do. But in a lot of mainstream industries, it can actually turn people off and confuse people and stop them pursuing a journey. Can you think of any sort of examples of where, have you seen any good examples of where that's had been a problem, I suppose?
The last thing you want on a piece of content that you're putting out is one of the first comments to be, what does that abbreviation stand for?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You really don't want that, because you've lost that person. Or, I mean, the flip side is they're intrigued, but it's just you're losing a percentage of the market, and you just want it to be a frictionless process. You don't want to be creating friction. So
keep it simple.
I can't think of an example that I've seen just off the top of my head, but they're out there every day, all day. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think the old KISS, keep it simple, stupid is a great way to remember these things as well, right? I mean, everyone knows that one, but I think it's simplicity in marketing is so important. That you just don't understand someone's level of sophistication, and someone who is incredibly sophisticated will still understand something simple, and someone who isn't at that level just yet is going to get lost if it's too complex. So it always makes sense to to keep it simple. And constant selling, I mean, it's another interesting one, right? I mean, yeah, if you don't sell enough, then you don't convert. You're just doing content for content's sake, which is of no use to anyone. But if you sell too much, it becomes just this really frustrating thing, and people start to unfollow and just stop paying attention, generally stop engaging, because like, I'll just get out of my face. I've got other things to do, or not. I'll buy something when I want to buy something, right? So what do you think what's the secret to getting the right blend there, right? You've got to do the selling, but you don't want to be too pushy. So what's the blend?
Yeah, I've heard it's put like this: if for every 6 to 7 posts that are value, the 7th can be a call to action.
Yeah, I think that's good. I've heard very similar models actually.
Yeah.
And we follow something quite similar to that actually in terms of our process when we're managing organic social for our clients or for ourselves actually. We do a very similar thing.
Right.
Certain messages. I think the rule of 5 or the rule of 7, something around that. Rule of 6, I think, is another one. Add any number on the rule of, right? But it's roughly around there.
Yes, exactly. It's around there. It's
roughly around there for getting the right mix. And I think it's important. You mentioned sort of tailoring your message, and I think one of the great things you said there is about the jargon. Don't use your language and ram it down people's throat, but more importantly, use other people's language, right? So when you understand your audience really well, you can speak to them in a way that you know is going to resonate with them. And I think that for me is always the critical point. It's less about avoiding certain things and more about tailoring your message, in my mind, around the audience you're speaking to. So when they hear it, they think, oh, that's the same way I talk. That's what I think, right? That these people get me, right? And I think when you know what it's like if you make a new friend, if you go out with a group of friends and there's someone there and you're introduced to them as a friend of a friend, and they say things and it's similar to how you speak and it's similar to how you think, oh, this person's amazing, right? Great, new friend, fantastic,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Whereas if they're talking about something you're interested in, but they do it in a really boring way or a really complicated way, or something along those lines, then it's not, you don't quite develop such a tight friendship with them, right? So that sort of tone of, I think it's always great to do human analogies when it comes to anything sort of tone of voice and brand. It's always very relevant.
Yeah, I mean, and you've nailed that when they say to you, I felt like you were speaking to me, you know?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
That's it. So speak the language. Make sure you understand your audience and speak that language. I think is a really important point to keep in mind. And when you do sell something, I think it's important to sell the right thing to the right person. I mean, obviously, right? That goes without saying, but it's very true that there are still a lot of solopreneurs and small business owners that do try and even in large businesses, which is terrible, but it does happen. That are trying to sell their product to everyone, and you can't just target everyone all the time with the same message. It's not going to resonate. So if you can make sure that your the thing you are selling is directed towards a specific type of person, and it could be an industry or it could be a job role or whatever, personality. Obviously, that's going to resonate a lot more as well. Is that something that you find with your social selling? Do you try and direct it more to any segments, or is it more around a message that's just tailored to individuals rather than targeted to them?
We it's something that I say every day, all day. It's narrow down your niche, narrow down who you're speaking to, because when you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So it's important to really, really, and that's why it is so important to understand your niche so well, because then when you are narrowing down, they really do feel like you spoke to me directly.
Yeah, and people want someone that can solve their problem, right? They don't want someone that can solve someone else's problem. I mean, if I work in healthcare, I don't care if you can help someone in transport. I mean, how's that of any interest to me at all, right? So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I get this question asked a lot, but Michelle, I've got more than one niche. That's fine. But when you're doing campaigns, use them as verticals. So run the one vertical to the narrow niche and then run another vertical a little bit later down the line. But don't run 2-3 verticals all at the same time. You're diluting your positioning in the market. Yeah,
absolutely. Sometimes there are common factors between people in different industries, but generally it's going to resonate much more clearly if you focus on a niche. Yeah, that's good. So what are the sort of habits you think people should get into with social selling? Well, I mean, you've mentioned consistency, right? I think that's critically important across all social and branding in general, to make sure you are consistent in terms of the timeliness and the message and the look and feel. It's the whole reason brand guidelines exist, and we all know what those are. So that's critical. What else would you say is like a good habit to get into to get really slick with social selling?
I think if you can just think of social selling with two main pillars, and the first being you creating your authority and your leadership and your thought leadership behind what it is you're doing. Mm-hmm. And so that is your content, what you're putting out there, and it's a frightening statistic. I think there's only 1% of LinkedIn profile holders are actually content creators. The rest are content consumers.
Right.
1%. So you understand there's a massive gap for content creation. So you want to be a person who's not only consuming, but who's creating and creating consistently. And then the other is you want to start opening up conversations, and that's really all selling is, right? Is how do I open up a conversation? And so how do I create content that's going to enable me to open up a conversation?
Have you got any? I mean, that's a brilliant point, right? I think that's a really fantastic point. What is it that starts the conversation? What is it opens the engagement? I think it's gives me a great point to think about when you're creating content. Are there any typical ways of doing that, do you think? Are there any great ways to think about sort of questions to ask or ways to prompt people to respond? Because I'm sure there'll be a load of people listening who think, well, look, I'm creating content, I'm targeting the right people, no one ever responds to me. Have you got any advice on how to trigger that conversation?
Absolutely. So one thing I want to say is there again, with consistency, you'll build up your following, but not only that, you'll build up your regulars that are consuming your content on a regular basis. So initially your engagement is going to be very low, but it will get better the longer you're at it. So this is a long game. This is not a short game. This is a long game, content creation and thought leadership and building your authority. And one thing I can say to the listeners is that everyone's always watching. They may not be engaging. They're always seeing, and they're always watching. Because I've had people say to me, your content is so much better than it used to be 2 years ago even. They've been following me for 3 years, right? And they've seen my progression. They've seen me get better, which is cringeworthy because you look at your old stuff and you're like, oh, man, can't believe I put that out there,
I know
that's another thing,
is
just take imperfect action. It's really rather put it out there than not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Done is better than perfect, right?
Done is better than perfect when it comes to content creation, because no matter how cringeworthy you think it is, it's going to land for somebody. It really is,
that's right. That's right. I mean, look,
especially if it's a heartfelt message and it's lived experience that you've gone through, it's going to land. It's just
and even if it doesn't land now, it might land later. I mean, content lives for a long time, right? That's a long tail. I've certainly had content that I've published that has done okay, and then a couple of years later suddenly has a big spike because it's irrelevant for whatever reason at that point. And it's funny you say that, because about the content. I was having a chat with someone just a couple of days ago who I haven't seen for a very long time. It was a whole world ago. It was probably more than half my career ago when I saw them last, when we worked together. And he said to me, I've been watching your journey, I've been following your content, it's great. I'm not going to blow my own trumpet here, but he really enjoyed the content and was telling me how much he got from it. I don't think I've ever seen a like from him or anything in the last 10, 15 years, but he's obviously been following it, and it's those nice little anecdotal stories that are quite nice to hear. But you're right, your content will resonate, and the more the better, right? If you can be pushing that out, especially video content, really good, engaging, valuable content, it's going to help someone, even if you can't necessarily see it in the data.
If you want to start a conversation and get further engagement, just think of, I always love this analogy that LinkedIn is just a massive cocktail party. It's a business cocktail party, right?
So that is a nice idea.
I love that analogy because it makes me not take myself so personally, because I just think of myself with my G&T in my hand, and I'm like going up to you, Simon, and I'm going to ask your opinion on, ChatGPT, for example. That's how cocktail party goes, right?
We haven't got time for that one right now.
But you know what I'm meaning. And so think of your posts as if you're putting something out there that's maybe controversial, that maybe somebody's got a different opinion on, and you've been chatting to a couple of people who you think are great prospects, you want to tag them at the bottom of your, in the first comment, and just go, would love you to chime in here and get your feedback. And just start a conversation, just start a back and forth. It's because that's what it is. Social selling is just opening up conversations. And how can I do that in a way that comes across as like authentic,
Yeah, I think tagging and asking people to get involved is great. I love that cocktail party analogy. I'm going to steal that. It's like a cocktail party where you can simultaneously hear everyone and talk to them at the same time, right?
Exactly.
It's lovely.
Which is why when you get these very spammy messages in your DMs on the first message, that would be like me going up to you at a cocktail party and going, Simon, here's my offer. It's available now only for the next 30 minutes. Do you know what I mean? It would be like that.
Yeah, you might walk away, right?
Exactly.
I mean, another good tool, and I actually think a great tool on LinkedIn is the newsletter functionality that it's obviously been around for a little while now, not that long, but a little while. I mean, I've had some great success with that, with ourselves personally, as well as some of our clients. It's a really great tool. I mean, how are you finding that? How are you using that?
Yeah, I think, newsletters there again, it's a consistency game. So you want to call out that you're actually writing a newsletter in every post and that people should subscribe in order to get your subscribers up, right? And you'll see they'll keep climbing. And that's the beauty of the newsletter. Another thing about the newsletter is that it's the only thing that's searchable on Google that comes up on LinkedIn. All your posts and everything else, that's not traceable, but your newsletters are, which is huge. And I think there again, consistency, get into a habit of, every Thursday at this time, I publish my newsletter, because you'll be amazed that people actually, if they're really getting value from it, they look for it and they'll call you out. If you miss a week, they'll be like, did you not publish a newsletter last week? It's incredible when you build up a following with that. They really look forward to it.
And it goes into your inbox as well, right? Your email inbox as well.
It goes into your email inbox.
Yeah, which is great, right? So obviously you've got the fact you're publishing it on the LinkedIn platform itself, but even for anyone who's not logging into LinkedIn regularly, they're going to get it as well. So the distribution of it as well is potentially really significant. So I mean, you can relatively quickly get into the tens of thousands of followers. It's not small fry. It's a lot faster than developing it many other ways. So I think it's great. And the key, as you've already said, is consistency and is in value of the messaging, right? Making sure that your newsletter, as with any email newsletter forever, way back for the last 30 years, so really needs to be focused on delivering value, not on selling, not on here's my product update and I've won an award and we've hired someone and that's great, 100%. Fine. But the person who's opening it, how are you going to give them something? If you don't give them something, why are they going to stay subscribed? They're not. They're just going to junk mail you or unsubscribe. So that's it. Really good value.
You want to get to a stage where, and I've got a couple of those newsletters that I subscribe to, where they really make my day. I look forward to seeing that person's name in my inbox. Because I know I'm going to always just get so many tips. I know it's always going to be worthwhile. It's
Do you subscribe to my newsletter, Michelle?
I do not, Simon. I'm sorry, I don't. But I
terminate
will.
Terminate the podcast right now.
I promised. I have been. Although on the flip side, I have been an avid following your content, your posts on LinkedIn, so that I have been doing. I promise.
Yeah, that's good. Great. No pressure, honestly. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was Sales Navigator, because I think again it's a hugely powerful tool. It's been around for quite a long time now, and it drives a lot of value in social selling. Have you got some advice on where to get started with that, and I suppose for the people who are not using it, where to get started with it, and for those that are using it, how to use it to its full potential? Yeah.
So for those that are not using it, if you're serious about generating business on LinkedIn, it's a non-negotiable. You can do free searches on LinkedIn, but they're limited. The amount of filters that Sales Navigator give you, and the amount of research that you're able to do on the company and the business as a whole from Sales Navigator is huge. It's so valuable. You'll be able to see what the revenues are, how many employees there are, who the decision makers are. It even points that out for you. So you can do so many really refined searches. For people that are using it already, I would say rather start small and build out from there. So don't have such a, there again, narrower focus. Don't have a search that's, I don't know, 10,000 names on it. It's going to be completely overwhelming for you to track. Keep it to under 500. And within that search, you should be able to track that. Sales Navigator has a kind of a basic CRM function as well that you can track your conversations and things through it as well. So,
okay, great. Yeah. Look, Michelle, there's a lot to unpack out of all of that, right? I think we've talked about keeping the message consistent and relevant to the individual user. We've talked about some really good habits to get into around social selling. We've talked about the power of LinkedIn newsletters and optimizing Sales Navigator and much more besides as well, and avoiding that constant selling and that jargon approach and all this. So there's some really great advice in there for people, and I'm sure if people want some more tips on social selling, I'm sure you'd be welcome and happy to take those questions as well if they want to come.
More than happy. Yeah, more than happy. Yeah,
LinkedIn there, right? Where's the best place for people to come and find you?
You can find me on email, michelle@thesimplecompany.com.
Nice.
Or on my LinkedIn profile, and you literally just search Michelle Louw. That's my LinkedIn profile is my name. So you'll see me there, Michelle Louw at The Simple Company, and send me a DM. I promise to engage on your content. And
Awesome. Good, great. Well, that's been fantastic. So thanks, Michelle. Really enjoyed that conversation. There's lots to learn there. I hope some people got some really great tips on social selling. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to, or the podcast, I should say, depending if you're listening or watching, don't forget to like and subscribe for many more videos I think we're about halfway through season 2. So we'll keep cracking on with this one. Lots more exciting stuff to come this season. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you for having me, Simon.